Hello, today I'm here to talk to you about 4 books centering moms with issues or mommy issues. I think one of these books is from the perspective of a daughter with a messed up mom, and then 3 of them are just like fucked up women navigating childbirth and like the expectations of children and inhabiting the role of mother. So this is our stack. This is what we're going to read today. On the top, we have Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder. If you don't know about this, where have you been? This took the fucking book world by storm a couple of years ago. It was everywhere. I'm so late to the party reading this. It has recently been adapted to the screen, a movie with Amy Adams that nobody fucking liked. So that's Night Bitch. This is about a woman. She's a mother. She's a stay-at-home mom, and she thinks she's turning into a dog. Then we have Bad Fruit by Ella King. This, as far as I can tell, I've heard way less about than Night Bitch. This is about a daughter, and she has a very fractured relationship with her mom, who is becoming more and more unhinged. Then we have Hot Springs Drive by Lindsay Hunter. This is a novel about 2 women, 2 moms. One of them is very jealous of the other one. They're very close friends. And the one who is the object of the like protagonist's jealousy, she ends up dying. We know that right from the start. It says it in the summary, and something, I don't know, it's gritty. Something dark happens, I think. And then we have With Teeth by Kristen Arnett. This is about a mom and a son, and they have a difficult relationship. The mom is like afraid of her son. I don't know, it kind of gave me vibes of like, we need to talk about Kevin, but also with this very much not we need to talk about Kevin vibe cover. I don't know if this is telling me that the book is going to be humorous. I would have thought that if I hadn't read the summary, but it makes it seem like it's going to be like maybe a little bit dark. It says hilarious and harrowing, and I can put up with that as long as we have the harrowing part as well. Also, Kristen Arnett has blurbed Hot Springs Drive, so that gives me a little bit. It says Kristen Arnett, author of With Teeth, so I think that there is some similarity between the two, and I know that this book is very dark and gritty. So this is the plan. This is what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to start with Night Bitch because it is very overdue at the library. It has been marked as lost, and they've charged me $30 for it. So I got to read this and get it back to them, because if I get charged another time, I'm not going to be able to take more books out. So I will see you when I have finished with Night Bitch. Hello there. I'm here to talk to you about Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder, a book, in summation, that is about a woman who thinks that she's turning into a dog. I'm going to tell you everything that happens in it. It's a little bit of a disjointed summary here, because most of this is just the protagonist thinking about things, and I'm not going to tell you every single thing that she thinks. I'm going to get into the plot points right now, though, and if you don't want to hear them, get the fuck out of here. So none of the leads in this book have names. It's the mother, the husband, and the son, until she gives in to her dog identity, her primal instincts, and then she becomes Night Bitch. But at the beginning, this is just following the mother, who's a stay-at-home mom with her little annoying toddler. She had been a woman, like many other women, she's not unique in this, with dreams and goals and aspirations. She'd gone to art school. She was an artist. She worked at a gallery. She had what she called her dream job, and she gave it up to take care of her baby. She tried to be a working mom for a while, and that just didn't work for her. She has a really negative view of daycares, which I think is exaggerated in this book, but I also felt like was a little bit weird. I don't know, working at a daycare, maybe I just worked at a really great daycare. It was nothing like what she was describing. I do think the book is just trying to say, like, these are her fears about how other people are treating her children. But in her mind, the daycare was run by horrible, evil women who hated babies and just let them sit on the linoleum floor and cry all day. And she couldn't bear thinking of her baby in that situation, so she had to give up her job. So she's at home alone with this toddler almost 100% of the time. It says that of the 24 weeks of the year so far, her husband has been gone on work trips for 22 of them. He's home really just on weekends, and it's just her and this fucking baby. She has no support system. She, like, not even with her husband. She has no one. It's just her and the fucking toddler. And they are doing the monotonous, mundane, everyday aspects of life that happens when you're taking care of a baby. They're doing playtime, they're doing bath time, they're doing mealtime. She's putting up with tantrums and tears and diapers and all of this shit. And it's awful. And the book goes into very vivid detail of how awful this is and how awful it often makes her feel. It is also rewarding, and it's also beautiful, and she has a very strong connection with her baby, of course. That connection can be difficult sometimes even when the husband is home, the baby only wants to be with the mother because it's really the only person that has been in his life for his entire life. But it's not all bad. There is beauty and love within this relationship with her toddler. What is bad is she's noticing that there are things happening to her body there's a hairiness kind of taking hold of her body, hairiness that she never really noticed before, never had before. She has this cyst on her tailbone, pops it open, and there's some coarse dark hair sticking out of there, and they resist being plucked. She has a heightened sense of smell, and she also has 4 new nipples. So she is like, I'm turning into a fucking dog. She brings this up with her husband kind of as a joke, but also at the same time believing it, and her husband takes it as a joke and says, isn't that funny? You're the night bitch. You turned into a bitch at night. You're a dog. She's like, no, I actually really think I am a dog. Her husband leaves on a work trip, and she goes to the library to do some more research on this possible dog becoming of hers. When she gets there, there are some women there who she looks down upon. These are moms who have kind of made being a mother their whole identity, or at least that's how Night Bitch sees it, and she doesn't really want to fall into that. Though it's interesting because they have found community where she has none. And they kind of have all experienced an equal loss of identity, but at least these women have made something positive out of it. Even though it is horrible what motherhood can do to a woman and to how she's viewed by everyone else and just like shrinks her down into just this one singular thing, it is nice that they found community, and Night Bitch clearly feels quite bitter about this. Though it is fair for her to be wary of them because they are all part of an MLM and trying to rope her into it. Mainly the lead woman, who she calls Blonde Mommy, I think, something like that, who is actually named Jen. Jen is like the talker. She's the one probably who's roped everyone into this MLM, and she's trying to like get on Night Bitch's good side, invite her to MLM parties, and Night Bitch is being really awkward and kind of dismissive, a little bit rude to Jen, but Jen is very persistent. The first time we see Jen is at the library, like I said, where Night Bitch is going to get some books, and here she finds a book that is the Field Guide to Magical Women, and she creates this like huge connection. She builds this book up like massively in her head. She feels like there is something spiritually connecting her to this book and to its author and to the women that it writes about. It's kind of like half scientific, half mythology. It's like anthropological, but also she is definitely wondering how much truth there is to it about this woman who went into the field and she experienced all kinds of different magical women. Bird women and witches and things like that. A little while later, 3 dogs appear in the yard, and her son are excited about this, and they go play with these really friendly dogs. And she kind of enters this trance-like state. And after a while of playing with the dogs, one of them, the golden retriever, she identifies as Jen. She's like, this golden retriever is like Jen's blonde. This is a golden retriever. They have the same eyes. And they both smell like strawberries. I think this is actually Jen. I think the women in the neighborhood are turning into fucking dogs. And Jen, the dog, maybe not Jen, this golden retriever leads her away, a little ways away from her son, who's with the other 2 dogs. And then she snaps out of it and she's like, get out of here, shoo. Like, it really freaks her out how much control she's lost. Then not too long after this, dozens and dozens of dogs appear on her lawn in the middle of the night. And this is where she lets herself go. She lets herself become a dog. They tear her clothes off, and she first resists, and then she allows it. She spends the night rummaging around, running around, being a fucking dog with all of these other dogs. When she wakes up in the morning, there is a pile of little dead animals, an offering left to her by these dogs, and she feels free. She now kind of just gives in to her instincts, to her primal urges. We go to a restaurant scene with her and her son. It's like a buffet. And for a while, ever since she's been noticing these dog feelings, she's been really wanting meat. She spends like hundreds of dollars at the grocery store on meat. She goes to this buffet. She has this meat and it's like just so delicious. She starts eating it with her hands. And then she just puts her face into the plate and just eats like, and she completely lets herself just become a creature who is eating, a being who is eating. That's all she is. Everything else is gone until it's not. When she looks up and she realizes that, of course, everyone in the restaurant is staring at her. She's been like barking and snorfing down this food, and she's at once absolutely humiliated at this. She's trying to justify it to herself, thinking like, I'm just playing with my son. I'm just a really good mom who plays with my son. But she is very embarrassed about letting go like this and not realizing how embarrassing she was being. And though she is humiliated, she allows herself to play doggy, to be a dog in the privacy of her own home with her son, who absolutely loves the dog games, as of course he does. I think what this book does best is talk about like the play, like the uninhibited play between her and her son when she's just free to just be a fucking dog. The 2 of them go to the store and they get a kennel and they get a collar and a leash and a dog bowl, which they almost exclusively drink from. and they just have a great time on their own being weird little dogs. Then at the end of part 2, they have spent a week now just letting themselves be dogs. And the husband returns, it's the weekend, he returns from his work trip, and he enters the house and he can't find his wife anywhere. It's just the baby and this dog that he's never seen before. And the dog rears back and starts growling at him and then books it out of the house. And that's where part 1 ends. Part 2 opens with the dog or the mother's perspective as she spends the night roaming around being a dog. She's digging up the turf. She's pooping in her neighbor's yards. She's killing small rodents. She spends the entire night as a dog. And it is this life-changing, revelatory, ecstatic experience for her. Just the freedom to be a dog and be nothing else. She comes home in the morning and her husband's like, you can't do that. Like, you can't just leave the baby on his own. She's like, I saw your location on my phone. I knew you were just a couple blocks away. I just needed to get out of here. He also says, what the hell's up with the dog? But when she doesn't respond to that question, he doesn't push it, which is very uncharacteristic of him. And she says that it seems like whatever's happening to her, there's also a bewitching that is affecting him as well, which is, of course, just a way to keep the plot moving so we don't have to spend all this time with her justifying to the husband why there was a dog and then the dog never comes back. It is a fun way to fill that hole, though. One of her old art friends invites her out for a picnic at the park, and while there, she's very distracted by a squirrel. She can't listen to what her friend is saying because she's just looking at this fucking squirrel, and she's smelling the squirrel. And she gets up and she starts screaming, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And her kid instantly is like, okay, we're playing. I'm like, I know how to play, we're playing. And they're hunting the little squirrel. And she wants to kill and eat this squirrel. She wants to drink the blood of this goddamn squirrel. Her kid knows exactly how to be a dog. He knows that his mom is going to lunge and he needs to be quiet to not scare the squirrel. It's actually kind of a lovely moment, but also very tense because you're like, if she gets this squirrel, she's going to snap its neck in her mouth and she's going to eat it in front of this friend. She doesn't, it gets away from her, but you know that is what she would have done. And she kind of plays it off as it's just a game we've been playing. I'm thinking of doing some performance art about motherhood. And her friend's like, you know what, why don't we go for a dinner with one of our other old art work friends? And she says, okay, fine. It's not something she would usually do, but she agrees to do it. When she goes to this dinner, the friend that she had already met up with, both of them are working moms. One of them, I think, has a live-in nanny, and the other one is able to let her kid go to daycare. And the two of them are still working the jobs that they want to be working. They're managing to balance being a mother and also being a woman or being a person. And this is not something that Nightbitch has been able to have for herself. And so she actually doesn't have all that much to add to the conversation, and she feels inferior, and they're acting a little bit superior, and they're really excluding her. They end up just fully turning their chairs towards each other and just talking about work while she sits there and she just stews on what's happening, and she gets more bitter and more jealous and more angry, and it is so tense. The tension builds up. She says something like she tried not to cry, and then she realized she was going to do something much worse. And then she jumps up, knocks the table over, and she starts screaming. And she's screaming responding to her own thoughts. I think the first thing she says is, I could crush a walnut with my vagina, at the top of her lungs. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just her internal coming out. And she immediately is embarrassed about what's happening, but she also can't really stop her instincts now that they have taken over. She storms out of the building and she grabs on her way out some random patron's hamburger, sheds the bun and the lettuce and the cheese, and just shoves the meat into her mouth and walks away. And she's, of course, absolutely humiliated by this. And she does sink into a depression because of it. And in this depression, I think around the end of part 2, is where she ends up killing the family cat in a very gruesome and disturbing and disgusting scene. This is something that has been set up. I think she's going to kill the cat at one point. She's going to let her dog instincts take over, and she's probably going to break the cat's neck. And she does, and yet this scene is still incredibly shocking with how vivid and disgusting and detailed it is. I knew the cat was going to die. Did I think I was going to get a description of its intestines? No, I didn't. And did I like that? No, I didn't. But I was kind of happy that the book managed to shock me with something that it had set forth. And I think it was good that it had set that forth, because there are lots of people who can't handle animal death in books. And so you knew that it was coming and you could stop reading if you didn't want to. But then also it still shocked you despite you knowing it was coming. It was horrible though. Oh my God, it was so horrible. But I think she did a good job of it regardless. So over the course of this book, she has run into this other mom, Jen, quite a few times. She's managed every time to sort of brush her off, but Jen is persistent and manages to convince Nightbitch to go to an MLM party at her house. Nightbitch goes. She does buy into it. She spends $600 on it. She doesn't really regret this. She recognizes it for what it is, but she kind of says like $600 was a great price to pay to people watch at this fucking party. She gets in there and Jen introduces everyone as Jen. They're all named Jen. And like when she points out how weird that is, they treat her as weird for pointing that out. Like it's not really something that we come back to or that means anything, I don't think. It's just like setting this really weird atmosphere in a funny way, and I thought that it was really enjoyable. At this party, she admits to this great shame of killing the cat. She doesn't say that she killed it as deliberately as she did or as gruesomely as she did. She says it was an accident, but everyone, like no one judges her. She's expecting judgment, and they all give their own stories about accidentally or accidentally on purpose killing the family pets. The pets represent like an obligation to these women, and it is something that they are able to take care of on their own. It makes sense, and it's horrible at the same time, but it is like a moment of bonding with other women for Nightbitch. A couple days after this party, she goes to the park and she sees those 3 dogs again. The golden retriever, that's Jen. She's like, I still think that's Jen. It still smells like strawberries. Like that is literally her. And then she turns around like looking for who these dogs could belong to, and she sees this woman that she has imagined to be the writer of this field guide that has been so important to her throughout the book that I haven't really like set forth as important as it really is in this book. But she chases after this woman that she has been like relentlessly emailing, that she feels this really strong one-sided connection to, and obviously of course the woman runs away, and this is kind of devastating for her. That night she gets to her computer and she emails Jen and she says, "Was that you I saw at the park today?" Hoping that Jen will take the hint and say, "Yes, I am also a dog." Jen doesn't say that. She says, "Haha, no, I wasn't at the park, but I've been meaning to talk to you. Like, can we get together? I feel a connection with you, and I just need to talk to somebody. I've been up all night. Like, I'm just walking around the neighborhood at night. Like, I'm freaking out. I'm losing it." And Nightbitch is like, she's gonna admit to me that she's a dog. She's like, "Okay, let's meet up like right now." They go to the museum with their kids, and Jen's like, "I'm fucking losing it. I lost all of our money to the MLM. Like, I'm fucked. I'm like 60K in, and I've screwed everything up. Like, it's literally just me buying the herbs from myself." Nightbitch is like, "Yeah, maybe I was a little bit delusional thinking that she was going to tell me that she was a dog." But she says to Jen, "We can fix this. I'll help you. Together, we're going to create a performance art piece. You're going to be my PR for this." She's learned that Jen is a communications major, so this does make sense in the context of the book. And they create, at the end of this book, this performance art. It starts with just the women in the neighborhood. Jen has all the connections. She invites all these women to Nightbitch's house, and they're sitting in the backyard. It's so atmospheric. Like, such a great feeling of, like, a summer night, like, backyard. I don't know. It just is so vivid to me. And I kind of want to watch the movie just for this scene to see how they did it, because the visual is laid out so beautifully of these women, and they're sitting in these chairs, and there's all these snacks, and there's like an endless fountain of wine, and they get drunk waiting for this performance art piece to start, waiting and like for hours, thinking like, I wasn't even planning on staying this long, and the art hasn't even started. They've noticed that there's a big bell jar with a big old slab of meat in it, and after hours of these women getting drunk and just kind of like hanging out, just sitting in these chairs, a wolf dog appears and walks up the aisle of the chairs, and some of them are freaked out, but some of them get on their hands and knees and follow in this wolf's footsteps. And then this wolf dog reaches up, grabs the meat from underneath of the jar, and like tears it to shreds, and then runs out of there. And everyone is freaked out by this. Everyone is like, what the hell was that? And they all kind of like decide to believe that something else had happened. They all think like, oh, we must have been really drunk. Then the book ends with like a full-blown performance art piece, like this whole in a theater, like it's really been set up, and it's kind of told through the perspective of people who have gone to see it, and critics and reviewers, and it's I don't really care to get into the details of it. Kind of reminded me of the end of All's Well by Mona Awad. It's like a little bit surreal. A lot of the critics and the reviewers and just people who were there are like, wow, is this like, how did she do that? Is this prosthetics? Like, how is she walking around like so gracefully on all fours like that? Like, this is so strange. And then like she's killing bunnies on stage, and they're like, oh, I wonder how she did the fake bunnies thing. And then some of the people have like hallucinatory experiences after the end of this. The werewolf dog human thing dives into the crowd at the end of the piece and like tears people to shreds, but like doesn't actually kill people. It's just kind of like, it's just kind of a surreal performance art piece. I think what's more interesting than what happens in this performance art piece is what the book is saying with it. I do think that this was kind of a lackluster ending. I didn't love where it went. I kind of wanted it to go full fucking weird, and instead it went like weird but with an excuse of it being art, so it's like palatable. I think it is interesting what it's saying about like the commodification of motherhood and how she's been able to monetize being a mother and like combine it with her dream of being an artist. I think that's like cool. It's cool that she ends up as this like dog woman. She doesn't have to give up that part of herself. It's like a hopeful ending while still remaining really fucking weird, and I enjoy that about it. But I just wanted something a bit more at the end of this book. I feel like it was building up, and then I didn't love how it ended up tying everything together. Though I do really like this bending or questioning of reality paralleled with like the reader at the beginning, especially like when she first turns into a dog and you're wondering like, is she a dog or is she just like a woman running around naked? And then the audience of her performance art piece is in that same position as the reader. Like there's like two audiences happening. I think that was really great. Overall, I think this was a really solid piece of work. I liked a lot of things about it. More things I liked than I didn't like. Again, the ending wasn't all that great. There was also this like thing that she did with the husband, the character of the husband. I liked how frustrating he was. I thought he was frustrating in a really realistic way, but it felt like the book didn't trust the reader to understand why he was being frustrating. Or not even quite that. It almost felt like the book was trying to cater to a really wide audience. It was trying to cater to the men that it was positioning as frustrating. Like saying like, if you're a husband reading this, this is why what the husband's doing is so irritating, is so unhelpful, why he is so useless. Anyone reading this book, almost anyone reading this book, would understand, like, yeah, it's not just this one moment of frustration. It's a whole bunch of things built up, but it would tell you that outright. It's not that he necessarily did anything wrong in this moment. It's because of everything behind it. Or here's exactly why this is a frustrating thing to do, even though it can seem innocuous to you. I felt like that was a little bit of like a cowardly choice, maybe. Or not cowardly. It just, I don't know. It felt like this work weakened itself to cater to men that were intent on misunderstanding it. And I wish that a different choice had been made there. Though that's mostly only a problem in the beginning, and it's not like a huge thing in this book, but it is something that I noticed a few times. I think it's more sad that the book felt like it had to do that. Everything else I have to say about this is really positive. I think that it was a great choice that this was written about a woman, like a mother of a toddler, and not a newborn mom. I think, of course, this play aspect is really important, and obviously you can't really have that with a newborn, but I do think that the body changing part of this would be really easy to write about like a postpartum woman. And it's more interesting to take this route of like a woman who has been a mom for a couple of years, and how that your body is still changing and your mind is still changing, and the isolation of that, and how fucking boring toddlers can be. I think that was great. And I think that the book could have easily been about the mother of a newborn, and it maybe would have been like easier to connect things with how she was feeling and what was happening to her body, but it would have been a worse book for it, and I'm glad that it made that choice. And like I just said, this play thing with her and her kid is just great. Like if you've ever spent a lot of time like hanging out with a fucking toddler, it is boring and it is monotonous, and you learn like really quickly that if you're like okay with being weird as hell, you will have a lot better of a time hanging out with a fucking kid. And I like that. I like that there was such a heavy emphasis on what Nightbitch felt was the right way to be a mother, and that she shed that over the book. That was not a pun that I'm sorry. Awful unintended pun there, I'm sorry. I liked that it showed us that when you're raising a kid, a lot of the hardest parts of raising a kid are the perceived judgments of other people. Like, when you have a toddler and he's not going to fucking sleep, you can say, let's play doggy, and you go sleep in the kennel, and he can go sleep in the kennel. And yeah, maybe that's weird as fuck. But does it make your life easier? Yes. And does it make your kid happier? Yes. I liked how that was explored, how being a mom is so centered around what other people think, And it would be so much easier if you could just like be weird with your little kid and let your little kid be weird. And I loved how it got into how joyous it is to play in an uninhibited way with kids. And that really lent itself to the atmosphere, like this it's all taking place over the summer. And it just felt like, it kind of felt like babysitting. Like it just gave me all these thoughts back to babysitting and just like playing weird ass games with toddlers. It can be so fun. It can be so full of joy, and this book captured it beautifully. I felt like this was so embodied. Like as a dog, she's just pure instinct and urge. She's just doing what her body is telling her to do, and that was so like fascinating to think about. And then it is so fascinating to think about humans as animals, because her kid is not experiencing this same feeling of turning into a dog, but he is also instinct and urge over everything else. Like that is what a toddler fucking is. And he is so animalistic in his behaviors and his play when he's allowed to be. And I think that was really interesting. At the end of the day, I think that this was a really well written, just solid on like the sentence level, the word choice. It felt like every sentence had a lot of meaning. It was like really well edited, which is kind of a weird thing to say. Very clean, clear prose. I liked that a lot. I liked how emotionally intelligent and insightful this was. I think that it was vividly detailed in a feral, depraved, like disgusting kind of way that I loved. It's exciting and it's tender and it's thoughtful and it's tense. And there was just so much fun to be had watching this woman be so weird and knowing like she's gonna be so fucking weird and humiliate herself and feel this like secondhand embarrassment every time she would let her dog instincts take over, but then also at the same time feel kind of happy for her because she felt this freedom and this ecstasy in being a dog, even if she felt humiliated afterwards. That was fun. And like maybe it could be a little bit repetitive, but I enjoyed it each and every time. Like I just thoroughly think this was a really fun and interesting read, and I would recommend it. It lives up to the hype for sure. Anyway, the next book that I'm going to be reading is Hot Springs Drive by Lindsay Hunter, and I will update you when I'm done with it. Okay, bye. Hello there. I'm here to talk to you about Hot Springs Drive by Lindsay Hunter. This is a story of two interconnected families, a betrayal, and then a shocking act of violence that follows. It's a whole bunch of alternating perspectives, and it's very well done, more so in the first half than the second half, though. I'm going to tell you everything that happens in it, so if you don't want to hear spoilers, I would recommend this book. So if that sounds interesting to you, it's like dark and gritty, skip this part, and go to the end where I talk more about my thoughts. So Hot Springs Drive begins with an intro to the relationship between Jackie and Teresa. I would say, especially in this first part, that Jackie is kind of the main character, and Teresa is her best friend. They're both mothers, and they meet in the hospital while giving birth to their children. Teresa's giving birth to her one and only daughter, Cece, where Jackie is giving birth to her son Jason, and it is spelled with a Y. Right from the jump, Jackie is clearly envious of how easy motherhood seems to come to Teresa. She only has the one kid. Jackie ends up with 4 boys, which is fucking bananas. The two of them do become really close friends despite this jealousy, and they end up moving in beside each other. We know right from the get-go that Teresa ends up murdered and that Jackie cheats with Teresa's husband. It tells us that in like the very first chapter. It jumps through time pretty quickly in the beginning here. It sets out the dynamics between the children and their parents, what their parents are like, and then it jumps to when all of these kids are teens. Jackie's oldest son is 17 going on 18. That's Douglas. Then her second son, Jason, who's the same age as Teresa's daughter, Cece. There's a lot of characters, but I think it will become more clear as I explain it. They are around 14. And then Jackie has 2 more kids, Nathan, who's the second youngest, and Sammy, who's the first youngest. It's unclear how old they are, but Sammy is obviously quite a bit younger than like Douglas. Jackie has put on a lot of weight as like a control thing. She feels so out of control in her life, and the expectations on her are crazy. Like no help from her husband, no help from her sons. They just need and need and need from her. So she eats, and she says like, it seems like I'm eating in an out of control way, but it is truly the only thing in my life that's in control. So her and Teresa go to this like weight loss clinic together. And while there, Jackie opens up on how Teresa's problems seem luxurious to her, how she doesn't even have the time to have problems as simplistic as Teresa's are. Like, does my daughter like me? She has she's 4 boys. Do you know how much laundry that is? Like, she is just living day to day, where Teresa has these like big, more abstract worries. In this beginning part of the book, there are a lot of indications towards Douglas having this really weird, intensely close relationship with his mom. It's like they just are like off in their own little world. He's obsessed with her, like he follows her around all the time, and it just like the creepiness just grows and grows and grows. I learned from this book that I love a creepy little boy who's obsessed with his mom in like a really weird, uncomfortable way. It was so fucking unsettling. Then we get a chapter following Nathan. He's the second youngest, and we learn that Nathan is obsessed with Teresa. And you're kind of wondering at this point, like, which of these weird kids is the one who ends up killing Teresa? Because we do know that it's a he that kills Teresa. We know right from the beginning when it tells us that there's this affair and then there's this murder, that it's not Jackie that kills Teresa. We get a chapter from Adam. This is Teresa's husband. He's talking about his relationship with his wife, how happy she's made his life, his annoying coworker. It's just kind of like introducing us to who he is as a person. He seems like a fine guy. Like he's not even like unsatisfied in his relationship, which makes his affair just like all the more puzzling. In this chapter, we get a little bit more information on Douglas because Adam can see Douglas watching with his little binoculars, trying to get a glimpse of Adam's daughter, Cece. And he's like, Cece's fucking 14. This kid is almost 18. He can't be doing this. Like, she's in the shower right now. So he is like thinking about Douglas, thinking like, what a weird, like, unsettling, creepy little kid. He thinks about how there was this time where they're playing horse and Douglas loses the game of horse and he just, like, calmly walked into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, came back out and stabbed the basketball until it deflated, and then he cried on his mom's shoulder until she led him away. He's weird. It starts with, like, okay, Douglas is, like, a little bit weird, a little bit creepy, like, maybe a little bit maladjusted, and then it's like, oh, no, he's like actually a danger. But a lot of this is coming from the parents' perspective. And I love this thing of like the parents' point of view of just like a creepy, weird little boy and not understanding that as he grows up, like what he is actually capable of physically. Oh my God, it's so awesome. I loved it. I was so unsettled. I could not put this down. When Adam goes over to Jackie's place to say, hey, tell your son to stop creeping on my daughter, he sees Jackie in a new light and he thinks she's lost a lot of weight. And he thinks, wow, she's really hot. Actually, she's so fucking hot. And Jackie is absolutely coming onto him. And she takes him into her bedroom under the pretense of like asking him to build her a new shelf. And then she's like, you can touch me wherever you want. And they have sex. This is the beginning of their affair. My cat just knocked the lamp over. After we get this incredibly erotic scene of the beginning of this couple's affair, then we get a Douglas chapter. I think this book does a really good job of making you so excited for the next chapter. Like you flip the page and you see who it is and you're like, oh my God, what is going to happen? At this point, I don't think we've heard anything from Douglas. All we've heard is things about him and how much of a fucking creep he is. And this chapter just kind of goes along with that perception of Douglas. He is a creep. He's a sexually frustrated teenager. He has a lot of sexual fantasies about Cece, a lot of them involving the obvious fear Cece has of Douglas that he recognizes. And we also get here a little bit more about Douglas's relationship with his mom, how he was praised for being the only one who noticed her emotions or cared about her, that he is like the only kid, the only person actually in her whole family who actually saw her, and he received so much love and praise in return. Then we get a chapter from Jason, the second oldest of Jackie's children, and he is telling us a lot about how his mom has just given up on being a mom. She has lost all this weight and she basically doesn't eat at all, and she's given up on everything in her life now. She's just thin. Like that's the only thing she can think about. She is so focused on how her body looks. So like Jason has soccer practice and it's his mom's turn to bring snacks, and he's like, of course she's not going to, like she's not going to hold up her weight, and all of his teammates are making fun of him for it, and it's like uncomfortable and like sad for this kid. He's also noticing how much she's always trying to look cool, and it kind of embarrasses him. Like he's just getting to an age where he looks at his mom and he thinks, that's really false. Like you're doing something that you saw in a movie and that you think looks cool. And it just like humiliates him to watch her do things like the way she puts out her cigarette. Just like little tiny gestures that he feels so embarrassed by. Jason has a crush on Cece. These two are the same age. They were born literally like a day apart. And Cece also likes Jason. And they begin dating kind of in secret, but also knowing that where they're hiding in the yard, Douglas is probably sitting in his room watching them. Both of them know about Douglas's like voyeuristic peeping Tom tendencies. They know that he watches Cece. Both of them and Douglas, they all know, basically everybody knows that their parents are having an affair. They've all seen evidence of it. Some of the kids don't want to connect that evidence, but they know that something really weird is happening with the two parents. And that's because Jackie and Adam are totally careless. Like, every kid has seen them doing something that should not be happening. They have ample opportunity to be secretive about this, and they're just not. They're so driven by their horniness in a way that is obviously, like, inevitably going to come to a terrible end. And then it does. Teresa catches them. She comes home from work to pick up her lunch bag that she forgot, and she hears a woman moaning in what sounds like pain in Cece's bathroom, which, like, they had just been playing, like, hide and seek in the house and ended up there, but it's like, you're in the bathroom of a 14-year-old. Like, you're in a child's domain having crazy sex. And when Teresa catches them in the door, Jackie says, he was assaulting me. And both Teresa and Adam just look at her with this pity. Like, she is just like the stupidest person in the world. Of course, Teresa's life is totally upturned. She kicks Adam out. She starts making plans on how to tell her daughter where they're going to move, if, like, she can go live with her sister for a little while. She hasn't actually told anyone. It's just been like 12 hours since they have been caught. And then she goes to the garage to leave for work, and Douglas is there with a crowbar. And he beats her to death brutally. Like, he really fucking sees it through. And that's where part 1 ends. Part 2 opens with this, like, police procedural chapter where it's like the lead detective talking to someone about, like, in an interview kind of setting about what they had found at the scene and what had happened. I didn't love this chapter. I mean, I don't care about, like, police stuff really, and I don't care about the perspective of a police officer, and I found it to be really voicey. Like, Vic, it was, like, bordering on incredibly corny, and up until this point, I thought the book had been very well written. But fortunately, we only get the 1 police chapter. Part 2 is mostly fallout from this crime years later, and we get to see how it affected everyone in both of these families. And we often get to see that through the perspectives of characters that we haven't even met yet. Like, the first chapter after the police officer is just this random girl at Cece's school. And a lot of what she talks about is just like what's going on in her own life. And then she sees Cece and she thinks, maybe I could help her. Like, everybody feels so bad for her. Nobody will touch her with a fucking 10-foot pole. And maybe she just needs to, like, get out of here. Like, she just seems so upset and so depressed. Her mom has been murdered by her next door neighbor, like an 18-year-old. So this girl, I think Jessica or something like that, is like, hey, Cece, let's go to the mall together, thinking that she can do something positive in Cece's life. And Cece agrees, but is very closed off, very quiet. They get to the mall, they're walking around, they go to Starbucks, and Cece stops dead in her tracks. And she sees ahead of her Jason, this boy that she was absolutely in love with. And she abandons Jessica and just goes and stands in front of Jason, and then they hug, and then they walk off together. It's like a very interesting way to see what has happened in Cece's life, to see what has happened between her and Jason. I loved this method of storytelling. Then we go to Douglas, who was absolutely convicted of this crime. I think he pled guilty, and he is in therapy in prison. Here, he's talking about how he committed this murder for his mom, to fix his mom, because he had been so, like, burdened with maintaining her happiness, and he knew that she was having this affair, and he saw that the onus was off of him while she was doing this, and he didn't want to be responsible for her happiness. He saw her so upset at being caught, and he was like, this is the way that I can fix this. I'll just go kill Teresa. Then it jumps even farther into the future, and we see Cece, and she's like taking care of her dad, like really kind of mothering him in a way, buying nice things for his apartment, getting him on dating apps so he's not just like a lonely old man. He goes on a date, and it's just a scam. It's just a true crime fucking podcast. There is some great commentary on the insidious, predatory nature of true crime in this book, and I thought that it was really well done and not overdone. Just how in the pursuit of entertainment, people feel like they have the right to harass victims of a crime. It's crazy, and it is so realistic. The entitlement that's what this book really got into with like true crime people begging for interviews, is how they feel like they are owed these interviews. It was great. From the more minor characters in the story, like Sammy, who was very young when this happened and we haven't got a perspective chapter from yet, it's just showing us how they have been impacted by like showing little moments in their life. We see Sammy moved out of his house, working at a bookstore, and he is angry. Like, he really got like the shit end of the fucking deal, and he's an angry like 20-year-old and so desperately lonely. And he ends up in this chapter having like a nice little gay experience with his coworker and finding some comfort in that. We know through other people thinking about it that Jason has ended up making a really great life for himself. He has started a company, he's got a lot of money, he has a girlfriend who supports him and is beautiful and kind, and he ends up abandoning that girlfriend, who he's planning on proposing to, because Cece contacts him on Facebook for the first time in like 8 years. The two of them see each other, and it's kind of heart-wrenching, like this long-lost childhood love. They had both never forgotten the other one. They, like, even Jason's girlfriend knew that Cece was first in his life, and they end up reconnecting after this horrible crime that has affected both of them so greatly, torn them apart, and the book ends with Cece's closure. But right before that, we get a chapter from Douglas, and it's Douglas's perspective on the day, the morning that he had murdered Teresa. And we learn from this perspective that Jackie had very much pushed him to do this. She never explicitly said, go and kill Teresa, but she said a lot of leading things to him. A lot of things like, I'm going to kill myself if she tells your dad. Like, really opening up to her 17-year-old son about this affair that she had had, and asking him to fix it in so many words. So like I said, I really enjoyed this book, but I liked the first half a lot more than the second half. I think that it got to the second half, and there were some chapters that were so overly voicey, like these stereotypical voices of the police officer with the Vic, and like these like, oh my god, just like such a stereotypical police officer. And then Jessica, who was a character we had never met, she talked like, oh my god, like this and like that and like whatever, and like she was so teenagery. It felt like it could have been doing something interesting with, so far the voices had all really been the same, and that is probably because of this interconnected, this intertwined family. They would have similar voices, totally. And then it's like, we're introducing new people, so we have to really differentiate them, but it just felt corny. It just didn't really work for me. But other than this huge effort that was put in to differentiate these voices, I think that it was, on the whole, really well written. I loved how things were described. Like, some books just have a way with words, and this is just such a stupid thing to say. Just little tiny things, like I would never think to describe it like that, but it gives such a clear picture. Like, one I can think of is they're talking about the way Jackie eats, just like tiny little bites of things, and often even spits them out. Like, she definitely has like a very intense eating disorder, and it talks about her dipping her yogurt spoon into a little pot of yogurt, pulling it out, and then dropping a jewel of honey on it. And I was like, that's beautiful. I've never thought of a jewel of honey, but I loved it, and I loved the image it gave me. Or at one point, Cece as a kid is talking about her dad's business cards, and she's talking about how much she loved them, how thick the cardstock was, and how it was textured, and how they almost felt spendable. And that's like, yes, like I totally get that idea, but I have never been able to put that into words in that way, or really like thought about it. This book does a really great job with that. Like, it is just well written by a person who looks around them and like sees things in a really different and poetic way. This book is more literary than it is thriller, but it's like literary with a page-turning quality, especially in the start, that just makes you want to get through it. I got through this really quickly. I was really excited to pick it up. Again, like, I loved the creepy little boy. I love that. Like, I need to read We Need to Talk About Kevin or whatever, but I've heard people say it's boring, so I don't really want to. But another book in this video, I think, has a creepy little boy, so I'm saving that for last, because reading this has made me so excited for that one. I think this book had some really interesting explorations of gender and identity and motherhood. I liked how it showed how so many of the women in this book are forced to mother useless fucking men. Like, that just kept happening. And men that were sometimes useless, you know, for reasons like trauma or whatever, but also never took the wheel. Like, just let women take care of them. I also think this had a really interesting exploration of Jackie's relationship with her body and with control and with eating. It was a little bit uncomfortable to read those parts. I mean, this whole book is really uncomfortable. It's vulgar, it's depraved, it's gross, it's gritty, it's nasty, and it is just like a really strong piece of work. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this book. There was just like the one thing in a few chapters that kind of ended up getting to me, but I had a great time reading this, even though it was like so messy, so dark. It was awesome. I recommend it. Like I said, I'm going to read With Teeth by Kristen Arnett last because I think it has a weird little creepy little boy, and that is something I'm so excited about. I'm just like, I don't want to treat myself too much, you know? Like, I had a great time with this one. I feel like I'm going to have a great time with that one. So instead, next, I'm going to read Bad Fruit, I want to say by Ella King. I'm right. Okay, I'm going to read Bad Fruit by Ella King, and then I'll get back to you. I'll see you then. Hello, I'm here to talk to you about Bad Fruit by Ella King. This is a story of a young woman who is stuck in her home with her incredibly abusive mother. And her mom is abusive in a really tense, frightening, specific way. She's like very combative. She takes offense to everything, and she treats this narrator, Lily, like she's a child, but also like she's the only person who can save her from her very volatile moods. The book does a really good job of setting you up to expect how this mom will overreact to things and the punishments that she'll dole out because of things that happen. And so the entire thing is just filled with this like absolutely sickening tension. I'm going to tell you what happens in it, and then we'll get into my thoughts afterward. So if you don't want spoilers, skip this part. So the beginning is an introduction to Lily, the narrator, and her mom, who is just called Mama throughout the whole thing. They have a very interesting relationship. Her mom is abusive, but Lily thinks that she has kind of avoided this abuse because most of the physical punishments have been given to her older siblings who have both at this point moved out. Lily is 18. She's about to go to Oxford. It's like a couple of months until she can finally leave this house. And she's kind of the sole caretaker of her mother, who has a lot of needs and is also like very emotionally childish in a really manipulative way. Like she weaponizes this immaturity that she has. Lily thinks of herself as so in tune to the moods of the house and to everything that's going on. She lives up in the attic, which was a choice that she kind of made herself. And in living up there, she can hear everything going on, and she can tell, or she thinks she can tell, by her mother's footsteps, the kind of mood that she's in and the kind of like treatments Lily will need to get her out of this mood. One of those treatments, hugely throughout the book, being giving her expired juice. Her mom has this very specific taste for juice that is past its due date, that has started to ferment and is like fizzy. It's disgusting, it's rancid, and she will only drink it if Lily takes a sip first and tests it. This is so indicative of the kinds of abuse that Lily faces that are very different from what her older siblings receive. So the book begins with Lily's mom discovering that her husband, Lily's dad, has been sending poems to Lily's brother's ex-wife, Francie. So this is this man's daughter-in-law. And her mom, of course, is enraged by this. She thinks that this is cheating, it's an emotional affair, and she is directing so much anger and vitriol towards their father, which Lily takes to mean things are really bad, because usually this kind of punishment for what's going on in her life, even if it's not the fault of her children, is directed towards her children. But she is like physically harming Lily's father because of this. Lily is shown as the peacekeeper in this situation. Her father is kind of just like this complacent dude who lets things happen and doesn't put any effort into helping Lily deal with his horrible wife. They are kind of just as bad as each other, just in different ways. The next scene we get is in the grocery store. They're shopping for ingredients to make for Lily's birthday dinner that night, and her mother is using this birthday dinner as an excuse to get the family together so that she can confront Francie and embarrass her in front of everyone. And at the grocery store, we get the information that this abuse is not just confined to the home, because the mom sends Lily out to get some ingredient that they had forgotten, and she's like not even 1 minute away. Like she has walked just a couple aisles when she starts hearing screaming, like absolute shrieking from her mother. She goes back to the aisle. There's like glass jars of pasta sauce shattered everywhere. Her mom is throwing things. She's freaking out. Like, she has no shame almost. Even once Lily is able to calm her down, there still isn't a sense of shame. She is someone who her emotions are so much more in control than like social obligation. Essentially, there are no limits to her cruelty, to where she'll enact it, to who will be caught in the crossfires, to who will be the subject of it. She will do this anywhere. And that happens throughout the entirety of the story. And again, it gives it such tension. Lily's mom orchestrates this huge blow up at dinner where she kind of confronts Francie, but not really. She's really just trying to embarrass her. In doing this, she ropes in her daughters. So Lily and her older sister, whose name I can't remember. It's something very similar to Lily. Julie, that's what it is. Or maybe just Julia. Sorry, just Julia. Lily goes along with whatever her mom says. She totally placates her, where Julia fights back. We kind of get introduced to Julia's dynamic with the mother. Julia will take the emotional and the physical abuse. She will not make herself smaller in the way that Lily does to appease her mom. She is very combative with her mother. And it might be satisfying to see someone stand up to this woman who no one has stood up to yet. Except Julia will very happily throw Lily under the bus to hurt their mom. And this kind of drives a wedge between Julia and Lily. I think they would be closer if they didn't take such vastly different approaches to dealing with their mother. Throughout the book so far, this is just a couple chapters in, there are little glimpses of memories that Lily is having. They're kind of like flashbacks. She sees spilled milk, and then it adds on spilled milk and broken glass, and it just kind of keeps building up, and each time she's struck with one of these memories, it's like a full-blown panic. Like, she feels it in her entire body. She can't do anything. Sometimes she vomits or dry heaves. Like, it is a horrific experience, and she doesn't know the root of these memories. She doesn't know when this experience has happened to her, and she has a lot of like muddled memories. She doesn't really have like a hugely thorough understanding of her own life. There's also been this weird thing throughout the book that is a thread the whole time, which is that Lily's mom has this really strange perception of her children as biracial. Lily's mom is Chinese and her dad is white. And she is the most white looking of the children, and her mom wants her to embody herself. Like, she wants her to be her own. Like, I think her sister Julia calls her like mama's doll. And that's what the ideal is for Lily. And in looking white, her mom calls her a Chinese word for like white devil. And it's something that it has been drilled into her that's very shameful. So she, since like 11 years old, has been dyeing her hair darker, has been putting on the wrong shade of makeup, has been wearing contacts. She has one brown eye and one blue eye, which I think is the most like cringe and heavy-handed thing in this book. I think it's so funny, the frequency with which characters in stories have heterochromia or whatever that is. I just think it's so funny and so cliche, especially to employ it in this way where it's like, look, she's biracial. That's why I don't know. I think it's a little bit silly, but luckily it doesn't really come up all that much because she is constantly wearing a brown contact over her blue eye. Anyway, they have this really tense dinner, but her mom's destructive, antsy energy is not really depleted by it, and she is still horrific, horrible to live with. It's clear that this is a lot worse than it normally is, but it's also not reactions that are out of the question. Lily needs to get out of the house, so she goes to the park, and we are privy to this thing that she does, that she clearly does often, where she picks a man, a specific kind of man, and she follows him around the park, thinking about him, and then finally she orchestrates, in the way her mom orchestrates things a little bit, she orchestrates just like running into him so that she can have a moment of touch that is not like harmful. And she also gets to hear an apology for being bumped into. This is, weird. She's a vulnerable young woman, and she is doing things that are a little bit concerning. You see, I don't know, the way she is with men, what she wants from men, it worries you. And things will happen that will also worry you, and I can assure you that nothing goes in that direction in this book. Thank God. That night back at home, her dad makes dinner to try to make her mom happy, and her mom dips her fork 2 millimeters into the sauce, and she says, "This has cheese in it." And her dad's like,
no, it doesn't. And she's like, you're trying to fucking poison me. And then, of course, she brings Lily into it, trying to, like, make sure her allegiances lie where her mother needs them to. And she says, did you see him put cheese in it? And Lily gets on her mom's side, throws her dad under the bus. You know, that's what her mom is trying to do. She's trying to break apart all of the other relationships in the house so that everyone, like, no no one can, like, build up a fucking mutiny against her. The next time the family is all together, which includes Lily and her older sister Julia and then her older brother Jacob, they go to this party of the ultra wealthy. This is something to do with the work her mom does. I think she's like some sort of financial assistant or wealth management, is something like that. And she has put a lot of pressure on this party as something that is going to be good for her job, that she can get these clients and maybe even branch off into her own private practice. So there is so much tension. We've already seen that she's not afraid to do horrible things in public. She's not afraid to humiliate other people and herself in public. And in the car ride there, Julia is, like, poking and prodding her and trying to trigger some big emotional reaction out of her, get her into a mood where she's going to at one point blow up. It's very high stakes. There's this breath holding tension, but it does end up okay enough in the end. Lily is watching the whole party and watching all of her little family things happening in different parts of the party. So she sees her older brother Jacob. He is, like, got a woman around his waist, like a woman that he's just met, and he's quite drunk. Her mom sees this and also is already triggered by Julia's actions in the car. So Lily sees her mom go over, find this champagne that she knows is like $400 a bottle. And when she thinks no one is looking, she dumps 2 of the bottles out onto the floor. And Lily and Julia both see this, and Julia across the room gestures to Lily, go deal with it. And Lily in this moment is like, fuck you. Like, you are the one that has put her into this situation, and now I'm picking up the pieces. This is not something that I want to do for you, for either of you. So instead, Lily goes to hide, and she hides behind this, like, curtain. I don't know. It makes sense in the book. I can't picture things properly, so I don't know the layout of this, like, mansion that they're in. But behind that curtain is this man, and they meet. He's like a professor, maybe not at Oxford, but maybe at Oxford. And oh no, he is a professor at Oxford, and they're both hiding from their own mothers. And he kind of opens up to her. She doesn't really open up to him. He protects her a little bit when her mom sees them behind the curtain and sees a drink in her hand. Like, she knows that her mom would never allow her to drink, and he switches their glasses. He just has apple juice, which, like, red flag, but whatever. So when her mom comes over, she's like, I know you. You're Lewis. You're this professor at Oxford. You and Lily should have a meeting so that she can talk to you about how she can best succeed at Oxford. This is what I was talking about with, like, worrying about how things are going to go with her relationship with men. This is a far older man with a lot more power than her in literally every sense. And I can tell you right now, that's not what happens with them. It does kind of tease it. You think it's going to happen. And, like, that's understandable. She is so vulnerable. That is a situation that she could very easily have found herself in. And yet he says, I just recognize... Sorry, I'm not explaining things very well right now. I'm sick, can you tell? They meet up a couple of times, and they're, like, playing games, and at one point he sees her when she's having, like, one of these panic attacks brought on by the flashbacks, and he kind of helps her out of it, and he says to her, I want you to know that that's not where this is going. I just see in you suffering that I have felt in my life, and I thought that I should help you and that I'm capable of helping you. I just, like, want to be a friend to you. He becomes the only person that she really talks to, really the only person that she opens up to. He's the only one that knows about these flashbacks that she's having that are, at this point, totally debilitating. She actually ends up going to the doctor and saying, like, I think I have a brain tumor. And the doctor says, no, these aren't hallucinations. They're some sort of flashback. This is, like, pretty normal and you'll be okay, but maybe go see a therapist. When she finally gets, like, a full picture of one of these flashbacks, it's clear that these are not her own memories. They're her mother's memories. And the book does over-explain it a little bit. I think that there were ways that this could have been, like, a really cool moment or a moment that like evoked feeling, but instead it kind of tells you over and over again, look, it's her mom, it's not her. I think it could have been done better, and it was like a little bit lacking there. But these flashbacks are showing her the abuse that her mother suffered at the hands of her father, Lily's grandpa. Through these flashbacks, she's starting to realize that her mother is a liar, has lied about almost everything Lily knows about her childhood. Her mom has these scars all over her arms that she told Lily were because of a car accident, but actually it seems they were because of a fire that killed her parents. She said it was the car accident that killed her parents. She had also said that she got this scholarship to Oxford, but she couldn't go because she was recovering because of this car accident. And everything Lily knows about her mom is slowly crumbling as she gets more and more of these memories, and she starts doing a little bit of research. She gets Lewis to look into the Oxford thing. Of course, she was never accepted to Oxford. That was a total lie. Her childhood home that they had gone and visited, that didn't actually belong to her. It was her uncle's house. And on and on and on. In the middle of the book, while she's discovering all of these things, her mom has actually gone on vacation with a work friend, Jonathan, and I think this was a really good choice that the book made. It's more of this quiet tension of how her mother is going to react to things when she gets back. And like we're learning things about Lily's dad. Like he has a secret bank account where her mom can't constantly check on all of his spendings. He does like side gigs to put money into this bank account. There's lots of things, and we also are curious about how Lily is going to confront her mom about all of these lies, if she even will. When her mother is there, the tension is so impactful, so incredibly strong, that I think it would be difficult for the book to do that for like 250 pages. So it's good that there's this chunk in the middle where it slows down a bit, but it is still present, just in a different way. I think it makes it so that when her mom gets back, you're ready for the faster pace, and it's way more intense. But while her mom is gone, Lily is going through this absolute crisis. She has prided herself on being someone who knows everything, being the person who's so in tune with everyone, who has all of the ways out of her mother's moods and attitudes and behaviors, and now she's realizing that she knows nothing, and she's also realizing that her older siblings know a lot more than she does, and they will not open up to her. At this time, she's also starting to get real weird about Lewis, who has, again, made it clear that that's not what he's looking for in their friendship. She's like recording him while they play their card game and then listening to the recordings over and over and over again. She's being real weird about it. Then one day she's panicking at a park and Lewis is there and he's helping her calm down, and then a woman comes up to them and she says, "Oh, you must be Lily. I'm someone," she has a name for sure, "I'm Lewis's girlfriend." And this sends Lily into an absolute spiraling panic. She runs away from them. She stops answering Lewis on the phone. And this is a little bit scary because she doesn't have anyone to talk to outside of Lewis. He is like her entire support system at this point. And then her mom gets home from the trip and Lily begins to act out, fitting in with her mom's interests. The two of them go for dinner with Francie, where her mom is wanting to confront Francie to see if she had like seduced her husband. She wants to put the blame on this woman. And when they go to this dinner, Francie is saying basically she's saying, "I feel really sorry for you." She seems to be like a really level-headed and kind person. And she's also saying not so kind things about her father-in-law, Lily's dad. She's saying, like, I did kind of know what he was up to. I think it's gross and weird, and I wasn't interested in it at all, but I didn't really know how to say no to him. And he was helping with the kids, so I just kind of let him send me these poems, knowing kind of that there was this underlying motive. And her mom storms out, but Lily dumps the green juice that Francie has ordered all over her, exactly in the way her mom would act. And in dumping this juice, Lily kind of fixes her mom. She's put into a better mood than she's been in throughout the entirety of this book. And she's like gifting Lily these like family heirlooms, this like really nice fancy ring. Their relationship is mending because of this. There had been a little bit of tension between them. And Lily kind of, in a very gentle and sort of beaten around the bush way, confronts her mom about the car accident lie, but her mom does not come clean, and Lily is absolutely devastated by this. And she begins to develop this desire to act out against her mother, or to put her mother in her place, or to do something to express her autonomy in some way. She also begins to recognize that in a lot of ways she's starting to become her mother. There's been this interesting thing throughout the book where she'll sometimes have memories of what she was like as a child or things she did as a child that really contrast with how she presents herself in the present day. Like, she seems to be a very quiet, introverted, gentle person, and then there'll be these memories where she acts, aligning with behavior that has been modeled for her. Like, she will be violent towards other children in her memories, which is not really something that you would expect from her, but does make total sense. And she's starting to think about that. She's starting to think about how she's no longer a kid, she's 18, and doing things like dumping juice all over her sister-in-law are things that her mother would do. But every time she tries to stand up to her mom, she is unable to actually stick to her guns and do it. She always backs down. But Lily's mom does have the same power that Lily has of being in tune with her family members, and she can tell that there is something growing, this chasm between her and Lily, and she punishes Lily for it. Their relationship becomes more and more fraught until Lily experiences her first bout of physical abuse from her mom, which is something that she knew her mom was capable of, but thought that she was protected from. Then, after this physical abuse, they go to the mall together, and her mom is in, Lily can see all of these little things about the mood that her mom is in, just the way she's sitting in the car, and God, the tension is fucking crazy. They go to the mall, and Lily's mom makes her steal a $2,000-$3,000 dress. They get caught, of course. They talk their way out of it. They get back to the car and they get in, and Lily's mom, I can't even remember what makes her freak out, because it's of course going to be something inconsequential. If she wants to freak out, she's going to freak out. And she ends up crashing the car and hurting. Lily hurts her head, and then she pushes her out of the car and she leaves her at the car park. Feeling absolutely abandoned and with nowhere to turn to, she doesn't have Lewis in her life anymore. Even though he tries calling her, he tries talking to her, she just deletes all of his messages. She goes to her sister Julia's apartment and she says, I need to break Mom. I can't do this anymore. She needs to be put in her fucking place. I want to destroy her. And Julia says it's not that easy. It's not that simple. Don't you think that's what I want to do? I've been fighting back against her for my entire life. You have been complacent. You have let her push you around. We've had very different approaches to this. It's not as easy as just breaking her. You are financially dependent on her. You are out of time to apply for scholarships. You won't be able to go to Oxford if you don't have her support. And Lily breaks down, and Julia kind of puts her head in her hands and says, forget what I said. I'll figure it out. But when Lily goes to confront her mom, all of her planned attacks go out the window once the hitting starts. She is abused quite brutally in this moment, and then her mom tells her, and what is even more devastating than the physical abuse in this moment, that actually Lily is not mature enough to go to Oxford on her own, and they're going to move with her, and she can stay with them near the school. And that is basically the worst thing that she could possibly hear in this situation. They end up going to viewings the next day. They're fast tracking this. The day after that, they're supposed to go to more viewings, but instead, Lily uses this spoiled juice that she has to bring to her mom to poison her a little bit with milk powder. She's so incredibly lactose intolerant. She's so sensitive to milk. Lily manages to make up a little poisoning, sends her to the bathroom all day. Her mom says, can you cancel the viewings on my phone? Go log into my email. She goes to do it, and she sees in the email that actually her correspondence with this real estate agent goes back way farther than this argument. This was always the plan, that they were going to follow Lily. She was never going to be able to get out of her mom's grasp. Lily then learns through a flashback that her mom was the one that set the fire that killed her grandfather. She gets this flashback, and she gets another one right before the fire setting of her grandfather snipping up her mother's teddy bear. Now, her mother has always had a room full of teddy bears as long as Lily has known her, and while she's in the bathroom sick, Lily goes into the bedroom and she snips up all of her mom's teddy bears as a punishment that she thinks will actually get through to her mother. And it does, but in a way that is far more impactful, far more intense than Lily ever expected it to be. She's waiting for this feeling of triumph when her mom comes out of the bathroom and sees what she's done, but it doesn't come, because when she sees her mom's face, she gets another flashback, and that is of right before the fire, after the teddy bear snipping that her grandfather had done, of sexual abuse that her mom faced at the hands of her own father. So in bringing this back, in putting her mom in this situation again, in this feeling again, she has done so much more harm than she ever anticipated doing. And it puts her mom into a state that she's never seen her in before, but it isn't a state where she is unable to continue her abuse. And this is the worst punishment that her mom can enact on her, which is getting her father to strip her naked and put her outside with nothing, throw her out the front door with absolutely no clothes. She makes her way to the shed, horrified, humiliated, and in the shed, she finds a backpack that her older siblings had left there with clothes for this exact situation, and she realizes that she had pushed out of her memory that this was a punishment that they were given many, many times in the past. In having all of this information come back to her, all of these memories come back to her, she realizes that the flashbacks she's been getting that belong to her mother are not some like psychic connection that they have. These are stories that her mom told her when she was a child, because her mom saw her as different and, I don't know, needed someone to talk to. But of course, as a kid, these stories gave her horrible nightmares, and when she finally said, "You have to stop telling me these stories," she got sent out here naked. That was the first time that she was sent out here. Her eyes have really been opened to the breadth of abuse that her and largely her older siblings have faced at the hands of their mom. She obviously never thought her mom wasn't abusive, but she didn't realize how far and how deep it went. She puts on her siblings' old clothes and she goes to the park where she used to meet Lewis, and she walks around there homeless, kind of like on the run from her family, for days until Lewis finds her and he takes her back to his house. Here, she's in an almost catatonic state. She won't respond to him whatsoever. I think he has to like fully carry her up into the house. So he calls his girlfriend over, who is a doctor, and she says, like, if you don't want to go to the hospital, you don't have to. You will not have to do anything you don't want to do. That includes accepting my help. We're just here to support you in any way that you need. There's this very sad scene where, I mean, she's been in the park for a few days. She needs to bathe, but she's afraid to be naked. And Lewis's girlfriend sees that, and she says, "You can just keep the towel on. Just, like, dip a cloth into the water, clean yourself like that." And then Lewis's girlfriend offers to wash her hair, which is just, like, so sad. This book made me so sad at the end. This like kinship between the two women, and this older woman helping this young, vulnerable woman get out of her abusive situation and like face her trauma and deal with the huge, like, unbearable emotions that she had been put through. Horrific. Like, absolutely so devastating. Just them, the three of them in the bathroom together, the two older people saying, "We'll leave you to it, like, we'll let you bathe yourself," and then Lily saying, "Please stay," to this woman who she doesn't know. Whoa. After a week or two of her recovering in this house, mostly just in bed, but then slowly being able to get up and walk around the room, to go downstairs sometimes, she is interrupted by her sister Julia banging down the fucking door, accusing Lewis of hurting her, accusing everybody of being a predator, and trying to drag Lily back home. Lily has like been completely missing. Like, nobody in her family knew where she was. Julia has with her a letter that had been found in Lily's room that was written to like the, I don't know, higher ups at Oxford, whoever would be Lewis's bosses, saying that he had forced himself onto her. This isn't true. And Lily says this isn't true. She says, "I just wrote it to make myself feel better when I knew that you had a girlfriend." It is horrible and like kind of in some ways hard to forgive. And yet, though he's devastated by this false accusation that she was never actually going to leverage against him, he still tries to protect her when she says, "I'll go back and I'll get the actual copy of this, not this photocopy, so that it can never be used against you." Lewis says, "Don't do it. That's exactly what your mom wants you to do. She does go back to her family's home, and she confronts her mother in a way that begins as explosive, involving the whole family. But then after this explosion, she goes back into her mom's room, and they have a conversation that is a little bit more gentle. Lily asks her about the abuse and about telling her about the abuse as a child. They fight a little bit. Her mom says, please just stay. Lily says no, but she does say, I love you. This is important. I need you to know this. I love you. And she cuts herself off from her mom. Then there's an epilogue where she is at Oxford, and she's not studying law like her mom had pushed her to. She's studying linguistics, which is an interest that she's had throughout the book. And that is where it ends. Though it is a little bit of a tidy, neat little ending, I think that it did feel satisfying enough to read, and it wasn't like cheap. I think this book had both a fast plot with a lot of tension and very complex characters and interesting explorations of their dynamics and the way that their past has affected them. I think it asks some very intriguing, thought-provoking questions. This book does force you to think. It forces you to kind of like confront your own opinions about abuse and like culpability. You can't sum any of these characters up neatly. It asks you how much empathy you have for Julia, how much empathy you have for Lily, how much empathy you have for their mom. Are you able to hold empathy and anger for any or all of them at once? Largely, this book is asking the question, what if you could experience what made your mother an abuser, and would that change anything? That is an endlessly thought-provoking question, and it does so, it explores that through these very vivid characters, and it shows all of the nuances in which this generational abuse has affected them. I think that Lily and her siblings are all affected in really different ways. Like, Julia fights back, Jacob shuts down, and Lily becomes complacent. And there's a very unique exploration of how living through this abuse and having these different coping mechanisms has created these really dysfunctional and codependent relationships between the siblings. Though I do think a criticism I have is that I thought that the lines drawn between the past and the present were a little bit too clean. It was just like a little bit obvious with everything. I think it's more interesting, but a lot more difficult when an author is able to show you how something has impacted a character that's not just like a one-to-one. Like, okay, Lily's mom drinks spoiled juice because her dad once made her drink spoiled juice. It's very clean. Then going back to a positive, I think that this book does have like a really, especially with Lewis and Lily's relationship, it doesn't dumb down or simplify what is very nuanced and complex. Like, it's not just this thing of like, oh my God, Lewis is like the perfect savior and he helps Lily and then she gets out of it, which is what ends up happening. But Lily is not able to just like fully and perfectly accept help from him. And also she, in some ways, can burden him with how much she needs because he is her only support. And this book doesn't make some like beautiful Hallmark-esque relationship between the two of them that's just like, look at this light in the darkness. Like, no, the darkness is still encroaching on the light. I love a book that creates tension by giving you the information to infer how things might play out, particularly how someone might react to things, especially in like a very overblown way. This book does it in just a fantastic way. It's just perfect right from the get-go. You know how her mom is going to react to specific things, and it creates a sense of tension that is absolutely suffocating. The suffocation is also kind of interestingly and also maybe like a little bit heavy-handedly reflected in the weather in this book. Like when her mother is at her worst and when Lily is at her most complacent, her most internalized, it's like this suffocating heat wave. And then at the end, it's this like torrential downpour of rain as everything comes out. Is it a little cheesy? Yes. Did I like it anyways? Yes, I did. I also found there to be a really interesting layer here with race and culture that was explored in a very intriguing way. I think that overall this book is just very nuanced, very layered, very complex. It's not like the most incredibly well-written book ever. Like, it's one of those books where it's like, this was good, and I can't really see how it could be better, but it was still just 4 stars. It's lacking something, but not something that you can really put your finger on or something that affects your reading experience. I just didn't finish this and think it lived up to the other 5-star books I've read. I would definitely recommend this book. I think that if you can't tell, or if you've skipped the summary, this is incredibly heavy. Basically every trigger warning under the sun, so I would be careful. Take care of yourself if you read this one. Know that there are some very emotionally gut-punching scenes in here, and just some really horrible, hard to read about themes that are covered. Though I do think they are covered with sensitivity and empathy, it still can be difficult. The next book I'm reading is With Teeth by Kristen Arnett, and I will get back to you when I'm finished with that. Okay, see you then. Hello, I'm here to talk to you about With Teeth by Kristen Arnett, a story of a mother trying to raise a very difficult son and also navigate her very difficult relationship with her wife. This was, I'll tell you right off the bat, the stinkiest of the books that I read. I didn't like it nearly as much as the other ones, which kind of sucks to end on that note, but it was fine. I don't think it was like a horrible book. I'll tell you more about my thoughts, but first I'm going to get into the plot, so if you don't want spoilers, skip this part. So With Teeth begins with our protagonist, Sammy, taking her 4-year-old son, Samson, to a park. She turns her back for a moment, and then she turns around, and he is being led away by a strange man and gets into a truck with this man. She manages to make it to them and pull him away. It is so tense. And she gets there, and he starts being like, he just wanted to see the truck. He was buckling this kid into the truck. And she is also kind of questioning, like, maybe I am overreacting. He was obviously trying to abduct her kid, but it's treated in this really interesting way and this very frustrating way to see this guy like not just run away, but try to justify his actions and then act like she's crazy when she's freaking the fuck out saying, I'm going to call the police. He's like looking down on her after trying to kidnap her son. It's a great first chapter. It is the best chapter in the book. Then we cut to Samson in 4th grade, and he has to do this project where he makes a doll that looks like himself, but he is this quiet kid in a very sinister way. He refuses to do anything he doesn't want to do. He's just like a difficult child in any way that you could be a difficult child. So Sammy is stuck doing this craft project that she doesn't want to do, and it's frustrating and it's irritating, and she keeps trying to get him to be involved in it somehow, and he keeps just like silently staring at her or going back to the living room to watch TV. She leaves the room at one point, and when she comes back, the entire room is covered in paint from this kid just like destroying everything. She finds him on the couch. He is also covered in paint. Like, it's clear he's dumped paint over his head. He's in 4th grade, which this is expected behavior from a toddler, but the book makes it very clear that he doesn't have any sort of like developmental delays or anything like that, that he is just a kid who is choosing to be terrible. As much as a kid can choose to be terrible, I'm just telling you that the book says many times, we've taken him to all the specialists, he's just kind of a dick. Sammy is very clearly overwhelmed with motherhood and very frustrated by her son's behavior. She's mostly just a stay-at-home single mom, even though she does have a wife, Monica, who is like the breadwinner of the family and typically working. At this point in the book, I was a little bit worried about this having a really shallow exploration of queerness and queer identity, where the two women just inhabit tired traditional gender roles. It wasn't quite that. It does seem like it's going to be in the beginning. There was an interesting thing that was brought up here when we're learning about Sammy and her wife Monica's relationship, where it talks about how Monica has this like projected image of a perfect gay family that she really wants to live up to. And that wasn't something that continued throughout the book, but I think it could have been a very interesting way to explore queerness in motherhood and in family. But because Monica wants them to be seen and wants herself to see them as normal, completely normal besides the gay thing, she wants everyone to see her son as normal. And so she convinces herself, he's just acting out a little bit. He's a normal kid, he just has a few behavioral issues, but we just need to let him grow into his own skin. So there's a problem here, right? There's this huge difference between the way Sammy and Monica view and therefore treat their son's behavioral issues. Sammy is endlessly frustrated by him. But the thing about that is that she doesn't act like it. She just thinks that, and she just expresses that to Monica, but he doesn't actually really ever receive punishments. And you see this at the beginning here when he has covered the house in paint, been deliberately destructive, made a huge mess that he's not going to have any hand in cleaning up, and she laughs. She is frustrated. Internally, she feels so angry at this. And yet, he does not ever face any punishment or any consequence for this behavior. Not only does she clean him up, she cleans up the entire house and she does his entire project for him. And then that night, she wakes up in the middle of the night and this doll is in her bed beside her. And it's like still wet with the paint. And she's like freaked out, of course. And she goes to her son's room and he's sleeping in there. And she says his name a few times and he doesn't respond at all until she says Tommy, which is his middle name. His middle name is Thomas. Now, this is where we start to understand Sammy as not the sympathetic character that she's trying to like portray herself as. Because at the end of every chapter of this book, we get a little glimpse into the perspective of a different character. And the first character we get to see is Samson's school teacher. And she talks a little bit about how uptight Sammy is and about how they had these issues because the school teacher has this idea where she lets kids be called the name that they want to be called. She says it's a way to give them a little bit of control in their lives. And Samson doesn't want to be called Samson. He would rather be called Tommy. And this enrages Sammy because she has named him, clearly, after herself. And she thinks that this name is not just a connection between the two of them, but symbolic of an ownership. You start to see here that Sammy is not just this overwhelmed mom that she wants to be seen as. There is something under the surface of her personality. She is not the best person, and she just kind of gets worse and worse and worse throughout the story. And I like this. I like that at the beginning, you kind of question whether or not you're supposed to be empathizing with everything that she thinks and says, because it sets her out. I mean, it starts out with her as some sort of victim in this kidnapping thing, and then being like gaslit by this guy. And then as it goes on, you realize, oh no, she's definitely not intended to be seen in a positive light, but it makes you question yourself and your own perception of her. The next chapter, we get a date night between Sammy and Monica. They're going to stay in a hotel together, and we get to see some of their relationship dynamics, which mostly involve a lot of jealousy from Sammy's side and resentment between the two of them. They have very different ideas about raising Samson, and Sammy also feels stuck in the role of mother, which is not really somewhere she expected to end up. In the middle of this night together, the friend who's taking care of Samson calls them and says, "You need to get here right now." Samson has bit her child so badly that he needed to be hospitalized. When they get to the hospital, they see Samson with this doll that was created in the previous chapter that he has apparently become obsessed with, been carrying around with him everywhere. The doll has this gouge out of its cheek. Obviously, clearly, this younger kid had bit the doll's cheek, and Samson had bit the kid in return. He is 10 years old. That is absolutely bonkers behavior from a 10-year-old. 10-year-olds don't bite. But when they get to the hospital, after doing this horrible thing, this violence enacted upon a much younger child in a way that is so inappropriate for his age, they don't punish him. They go up to him and they say, "Oh, sweetie, are you okay?" Sammy starts cleaning the blood off of his face with a napkin in this very maternal, gentle kind of way. So of course they send him to therapy over this. The first time they try to go to therapy, they drive past an ice cream shop that he wants to go to, and he starts throwing a fit in the backseat, trying to throw himself out of the window. So Sammy crawls back there to try to get him under control, and when she grabs his arm to stop him from like banging on the door and trying to open the window, he bites her, and he bites her hard, and she can't get her arm out, so she, in return, bites him. And they leave these bite marks on each other. Once Sammy realizes that Monica hasn't actually seen exactly what happened, she tells her that Samson bit himself, and they keep this secret. And then she realizes that in keeping this secret, Samson has this power over her that he absolutely recognizes. When they do finally end up taking him to the therapist says he needs an activity. He's a smart kid, he's antsy, he's bored, he just needs some sort of routine, something he can do. And so they take him swimming, and he's very good at swimming, and he seems to like it enough, though he doesn't say much. He doesn't express disinterest or like throw any fits or freak out when he has to go swimming. During these weekly swim meets, Sammy meets a woman, Lenore, whose daughter is the same age as Samson, and they sit together. And Lenore is a problematic woman. She brings alcohol and they drink, and then they judge everyone around them. And Sammy is very much attracted to Lenore and attracted to her brashness and her blunt demeanor. And one day Lenore invites her back to her apartment, and Sammy goes with Samson for like a play under the pretense of a play date, and they have a little bit of an affair, just some making out on the porch, until they hear the kids behind them screaming, and they are screaming because the cat has scratched Samson. And Samson is, as you expect him to, freaking out about this. And he throws the cat over the balcony. It doesn't kill it, but it is like a horrible scene. And then the kid, Lenore's kid, starts screaming, and she hits her to make her stop. And they never speak to each other again. Samson is still going to therapy, and the therapist at one point brings up this twin that Samson had eaten. I think this is so funny. I thought this was so funny throughout the whole book. Sammy being like, I had a little girl, and she was eaten by... She was devoured by this horrible boy. I loved the idea that it was like an omen of what was to come, absorbing your twin in utero. That is so fucking funny. But it really freaks Sammy out because no one has ever told Samson about this twin that he had absorbed, and he's been talking about her in therapy. Sammy's really panicking having this all brought back up, and then they hear something in the waiting room where her son is, and they go out, and he has his arms in the fish tank and is scooping the water out. So it's a tough day. Sammy goes home, and that night, her wife, who she is obviously not having a great relationship with at this point. She's cheated on her. They have a lot of tension between them. They don't really seem to like each other all that much. Monica doesn't come home that night, and Sammy is in a state, and she has been spying on the neighbor that like butts up against her backyard. They live in these mirrored houses. It's this very on-the-nose thing where this woman is childless and I think single, and Sammy likes to go into her yard and spy through her window just to see what her own life could have been like. And this night is the night that she finally gets caught doing that. Monica gets home at the moment she's caught, and she manages to get the neighbor to calm down and say, my wife is a sleepwalker. I'm so sorry. She's never made it this far before, but it's a chronic condition. And then that night, Monica moves into the guest room. Then it cuts to 6 years later. Samson is 16. They are fully separated, but they're all still living in the same house together. And Sammy is going on dates. She's going on this date with this woman named Myra, who is basically a carbon copy of Monica. When she gets home from this date, she realizes she has a bunch of missed calls from Monica, and it turns out that something has happened to Samson at his job at the bowling alley. There's this thing in this book where we don't get to know what has happened. It's just a thing of like, get here right now. I'm not going to give you any information whatsoever. It kind of tries to write itself out of that, give itself an excuse, but basically Sammy has set you up to expect really terrible things from Samson, and then usually they're innocuous. I mean, like, he's accused of spitting in a girl's cup, which is not great, but it's not like he has, like, violently murdered someone like Sammy thinks he's going to. But now that Samson is older, we get to learn a little bit more about him. Him and his mom go to dinner that night when she takes him home from the bowling alley. She gets really drunk, and he keeps asking for sips of her beer, and she says you can have one sip for every question about yourself that you answer, because he's just this enigma to her. She knows nothing about him. We get to see here a lot of Sammy's failures as a mother. Samson really voices them. Like, she'll say, what's your favorite color? And he'll say, what do you mean, what's my favorite color? I've told you 100 times. Where the whole book, we have seen Samson through Sammy's eyes, and we've seen him to be this kid who refuses to engage, this kid who is just solely poorly behaved. There's no warmth to him. There's no gentleness to him. He is just a bad kid and a kid that does not speak to his mother, and that's it. And then in this conversation, we see that that is absolutely not the whole truth. But Sammy herself does not recognize this, which is definitely really frustrating to see, because she keeps up this image that she has of Samson in her head throughout the book, even after you, as the reader, know that it's not accurate. Sammy is losing it at this point. She is becoming worse and worse and worse. She's having, mostly this is a story about her marriage, less about her creepy little kid, who isn't actually that creepy. Regardless, she is having a lot of feelings about dating new women and seeing Monica dating new women, and she goes to the bar and she follows a younger woman into the bathroom and she assaults her. And this is seen from her perspective very differently than you are meant to interpret it, than anyone would ever interpret it. She thinks, oh, she said don't, but I don't know if she said, I think it was just someone else. I think it was just the one word. Like, I can't really believe that that was what she said. It's really loud in here. And then she's like, assaulting her, and she's thinking about how comforting it is to be touched and to touch, and she doesn't even hear the don't stop, and then she gets kicked out of this bar, obviously. Then there's a scene where she's driving her son and a bunch of his swim teammates to some meet, whatever, and a lot of this scene is just her being like, I hate teenage boys. They're farting. They stink. It's like such a simplistic view of gender throughout the entirety of this book that gets incredibly tired. But the main thing that happens here, the point of this, is that she is caught. She gets a text from this woman she's been seeing a little bit, Myra, of just like a full just pussy shot. That's it. It's just a close-up shot, and she's looking at it while driving. And then a kid appears behind her, and she drops the phone, and she's like, oh my god, I don't think he saw anything, but like, what if he did? They end up going to a rest stop. She comes out, and she sees that her son has not gone to the bathroom, but is peeing all over the side of the building. There's a mother and her toddler. She's trying to get away as quickly as she can, because this kid is like revealing himself to everyone all around. But when Sammy goes to say, hey, don't fucking do that. What the hell is wrong with you? You're disgusting. You're horrible. Like, you need consent before you take your penis out of your pants. He says, you were looking at a photo of a vagina while you're supposed to be driving, my friends. The problem here, and the problem throughout the book, that is not like necessarily a problem with the writing, but is just a problem because you feel so frustrated by it, is that nothing comes of that. Nothing comes of anything. There are no consequences whatsoever besides the fact that Monica has split from her and is seeing new people. That's the only consequence anyone ever faces in this entire book. When she gets back from this trip, Sammy decides to go and have a bath in Monica's bathroom because she has like a nicer tub or something like that. And while she's in this room, she's snooping around, of course, and she finds a whole bunch of stuff belonging to another woman. She then finds some letters that mention a ring that seem to be written from a very young woman. When she kind of confronts Monica about this, Monica says, yeah, it's very serious between me and this woman. I would like her to meet Samson. Sammy says, absolutely not. They end up agreeing to go on a date. They go on a double date, Myra being Sammy's date. So this is how Sammy meets Monica's fiance, Megan, who is, like she expected, a lot younger than any of the rest of them. And during this dinner, it's very tense the whole time. Sammy is incredibly jealous. It's not that she necessarily still has feelings for this Monica, but she still has a lot of feelings about the Monica that she was first dating, that she first fell in love with. And every little bit of information that she gets about their relationship and everything she sees about Megan is just sending her spiraling. Finally, Megan says, I'm so excited to meet Samson. I really need to meet him before we move in together, before we live in the same house. And Sammy responds to this by shattering her wine glass in her hand. Myra takes her to urgent care. She just gets some painkillers, which she takes that night, even though she is very much drunk, and they said, don't drink on the fucking painkillers. When Monica gets home, they get into an absolutely massive fight. In this fight, Monica tells Sammy that this baby sister, this twin that she thought that Samson had absorbed in the womb, was never real. That was just something that Sammy had made up because she had a little bit of spotting, and they just let her believe it because they thought she was going to have a breakdown. But she never actually, there was never a second heartbeat. There was never a twin. This fight ends up with the two of them on the staircase, and Monica grabs Sammy's arm and won't let go and is shaking her, and Sammy pushes her down the stairs, but doesn't perceive herself as pushing her down the stairs. She says she shakes her off, and then she opens her eyes, and Monica's at the bottom of the stairs in a fucking heap. It cuts from that scene to the very end of the book, which are 2 emails from Sammy to Samson. It's clear that he's now at university, and it's very clear that they have an incredibly strained relationship. And Sammy is trying to talk to him about his perception of that day that the book started with, where he was being led by this man into the truck, and how she needed to pull him back, that he wanted to leave her. And she sends this email saying, like, why didn't you want to stay with me? And then we get another email that's a response to his response, though we don't get his response. And she's like, I'm sorry I upset you. I didn't mean to do that. And then she says, those other things you bring up, like that bite in the car, I don't think we remember that the same way. And what you said about your mom and the stairs, that's just not what happened. So it's now her doing the same thing that this man did to her in the beginning telling Samson that his perception of reality is wrong so that she can keep living in her little fantasy world where she is always the victim and where her son is like an evil little boy. When really, he's not an evil little boy. He's clearly just acting out because he has two incredibly inadequate moms. And I did like that. I liked the unreliability of the narrator here. I liked the characterization. What I didn't love about this book was just generally the writing. I think that the writing was really awkward and really clunky. There was this thing that it did so often that made me want to actually blow my brains out, where it would try to give these little snippets of wisdom that were so fucking cliche or just nonsense. Like, one was just like, Sammy knew that as a queer woman, she had to build her own community. And the way the book would treat a sentiment like that was as if it was a revelation. Like, it was the first time it had ever been said by anyone. So ridiculous. And by the end of this book, those little snippets of wisdom were like at the end of every single fucking paragraph. It was so hard to read. There were also some major plot holes that I noticed throughout the book. The hugest one being that Monica's girlfriend, Megan, is living with her mom, which is a way that it's telling us that she is quite young. And then we get one of those little like paragraph glimpses of Megan's perspective, and we learn that her parents live on opposite ends of the country and she moved to Florida alone. So where does her mom live? If not in Florida, where she lives. Even just small things that I think reveal lazy writing or lazy editing, like the book says that Samson's door when he's in 4th grade is always open. And then later on in that same chapter, when he's sleeping, she goes and she opens his door. How did I catch that and nobody reading this ever did? The writing does feel really corny and really cliche and unskilled. I think it felt so 2016, and I was kind of forgiving it. I was like, you know what? This is a 2016 kind of book. Not the setting feeling 2016, but the writing feeling 2016. And then I looked, published in 2021. I could no longer forgive it after I had that information. I think that, fortunately, the premise was interesting enough, and the characters were interesting enough that I felt compelled and engaged with this book the whole time. But looking at it from an objective standpoint, the writing was not good. I also thought there was a weird gender essentialist aspect to this book that was like, men are like this and women are like this, and there are very strict biological inherent characteristics of each sex. And I couldn't tell if that was trying to be like commentary, because of course, we're not supposed to like Sammy or necessarily agree with anything that she says. I think that it was trying to be commentary in the way that she spoke about mothers and fathers and like family identity and how gender fit into that. But then I don't think that all of the thoughts about teenage boys being this very stereotypical, very exaggerated portrayal, like I think I mentioned, of boys that are farting and burping and stinking and they're loud and they're cruel and girl, if I had my girl daughter, she would have been lovely and nice. That part, the girl daughter part, was definitely we're not supposed to take that seriously, but I think it went so overboard with the perception of teenage boys that it was meant to be like a portrayal of teenage boys, because it wasn't just that that's how Sammy saw it. With the other things that I feel like were commentary on gender that just kind of fell flat, that was how Sammy saw things. But with the teenage boys, it was like, this is just a fact of how teenage boys are, and I thought it was silly. I also thought, unfortunately, this felt like a really shallow exploration of queerness and queer identity. It felt as though it was written for straight people. It was written for straight people to understand. You know, just the really shallow parts of, like, again, I thought this was written in 2016. So it would be like, I don't have a good relationship with my mom because I'm gay. And, like, that was the depth that we got. Or it would be like, sometimes people assume I have a husband. I understand that sounds like an absolutely insane critique. I just felt like it didn't feel reflective of the actual depth of queer experience. It felt like this very surface level, palatable take on queer issues that straight people are able to digest without actually getting into the fucking weeds of it. And then another huge problem that I had with this book is that I felt like it kind of lost tension because there were no longer any stakes. Once you realized both that no one's ever going to face any consequences for their actions and that Samson's not like dangerous. Every time Sammy gets a call and it's like, oh my God, you need to get here right now. Samson has done something terrible. It's like he got in a food fight. Like it's like so nothing every single time, and it's built up, and then it's always this letdown of what has actually happened. Like, okay, even like the fish. Like, okay, he spilled the water out of the fish tank. Whatever, right? I think that all of these issues that I had with it and the fact that I kept going despite them and I never felt like this was a drag to read does speak to the characterization and how fun it was and how engaging it was. I liked these characters, or I didn't like these characters. I liked following these characters, and I was very interested in what was going to happen to them, and that kept me going easily through this book. I think this was like a really quick and easy read. It's not overly heavy in any way. I just think that there were so many ways that this could have been done a lot better, and it was a bit of a disappointment in that, especially because I have just read 3 pretty fantastic books about like really messed up moms. I don't think that this had a lot of depth, and being the only queer one, I was really hoping that it would. That's really all I have to say to you today. I think that this was a pretty solid collection of books. I like this kind of subgenre a lot. If you have any recommendations for books similar more to Hot Springs Drive in that they have this fucking creepy, scary little boy character and it's told largely from like the perspectives of parents, that would be awesome. I am absolutely seeking that out. If you would like to join the book club, you should come and do that. We're reading Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen this month. It is a romp and a riot, and I'm so excited to talk about it with everyone. I will see you next time. Okay, bye.